Welcome to Hotline TV. I'm Amy Walter.
And I'm John Mercurio. Okay, the Eric Massa saga truly has it all.
Oh, it does.
Amy, it's got sex, it's got salty language, and it's even got a shower scene, mental image that it just won't go away.
Oh,
it's
and I really wish that I could make it go away.
It's right there. But most importantly, Eric Massa is all of the Democrats' recent struggles rolled into one very bitter ex-congressman. So let's go through.
Point.
Yeah, he's really the story that keeps on giving, if you will. So let's go through a couple different angles of the Massa saga that we have been exploring here at the hotline. Angles.
Okay.
All right. First of all, and I covered this myself today, one of the allegations that he made was that Democrats, this was during his radio interview on Sunday, Democratic leaders, forced his resignation. He voted no on the health care bill in November from the liberal perspective, didn't think it went far enough, wasn't aggressive enough, especially on the public option. So he voted no. He said he probably would vote no again, and he claims that this is what led Democrats, especially Steny Hoyer and Rahm Emanuel, to force him out of the House. Democrats, Hoyer came out on Tuesday, bitterly denied that, bitterly said that was an absolutely outrageous allegation. The White House has also denied it. But, you know, is there any truth to this, Amy? Democrats do want to pass that health care bill.
Well, they do. I guess there are two things. One, when these accusations started, or whatever, when Hoyer presented these findings to the Ethics Committee.
Sure. Well,
at that point,
Hoyer didn't. It was presented by the staff.
To Hoyer.
And then Hoyer said, if you don't present it within 48 hours,
I will.
But then the staff
did.
And
at that time, by the way, Democrats were feeling more confident they had the votes. They didn't think that Massa was going to be the swing vote in this case, number one. Number two, whether they have him or they don't have him, the 216 number is the one that we keep coming back to. I don't think that he was going to be the factor in there. I mean, the timing of it all is really, you really start to question that. And the other thing is, if he really, truly were innocent and was simply being set up, why would he, on his own, say, I'm resigning? Right. If I'm innocent and I'm just getting set up and pushed out and none of this is true, then I'm going to sit there and defend myself. Charlie Rangel willingly stepped off the committee. You don't see him willingly resigning. You don't see him even talking about not running for re-election.
Well, I do agree with you. I think there's a difference between Massa and Rangel. Rangel, you know, a senior veteran, very plugged in with the House Democratic leadership, and Massa, a maverick from a very competitive district that he was probably going to lose.
Correct.
Anyway, but yeah, I think you're right. I also think it's interesting, though, that within the span of 72 hours, he's gone from being a liberal Democrat to sort of a conservative darling.
Well, that is, you're exactly right.
And it's a temporary fix or it's a soft landing, I guess, for Eric Massa. He's going to spend an hour sitting down with Glenn Beck. We'd like to invite Eric Massa, by the way, to join us on Hotline TV. I know he's been a big fan of the show.
Well, that's a very good point. And the other issue, which now, of course, just flew out of my mind as I started to think about this, but about the healthcare debate is President Obama yesterday in Philadelphia really wanted to try to get the moral high ground here, right? Saying, let's just forget all these process stories, all this talk about reconciliation. This is about doing the right thing. This is about standing up for principle. And then what is today about? A guy who says that the White House pressured him out, and we're getting back to process, and we're getting back to how tough it is for Democrats to corral these votes. Oh, and P.S., the story's also about Rahm, and what is he going to do, and what other things have been promised. And so, again, anytime the president tries to make this moral high ground issue, there's something to undercut that.
All right, let's go up to upstate New York. New York's 29th congressional district, a historically, traditionally Republican seat. Eric Massa won it narrowly in 2008 over a former congressman who's considering, although has he said he's not going to run?
I don't know that he's said he's not going to run. I'm sure Democrats would love for him to run, but it doesn't look like he's in the mix. Randy Kuehl is the person that we're speaking of.
Interesting, though. Massa might be, this year, New York Democrats have done nothing but get themselves terrible headlines. There is scandal after scandal, whether it's the governor's office, Charlie Rangel, now Eric Massa, just to name a few. Massa, of the examples that I'm thinking of, is the exception to the rule. The rule being that Democrats can screw up as much as they want to. There's no Republican waiting in the wings to take over for them. A very good point made to me by our New York correspondent, Dan Rome. Really, I mean, think about it. Rangel's seat is Democratic. Whether he drops out before the primary, allows someone else to win the nomination, that seat will not go to a Republican. Now, Bill Jefferson's seat in Louisiana was the exception to the rule of that happening. And the same thing, I think, is probably true in the governor's race. You've got a Democrat willing to step in, Andrew Cuomo. That's actually a benefit for the Democratic Party if Patterson doesn't run. Massa, though, I think by retiring, really presents a problem, an additional problem for his party.
But here's another interesting point, though. If you're David Patterson, you're not running for re-election, he does not technically have to call a special election. He can keep this seat open all the way through until November, which, quite frankly, is probably the best case scenario for Democrats.
Right.
And may save them a little bit of money, too, and save the state a little bit of money. Now, the question is, does David Patterson really care about helping out his party right about now?
Probably
I don't know if he
so
wants
much.
to be able to do that. So, in the end, we may not have a special election.
Right.
Something to think about.
But also, I just made the point that that might be the exception. Republicans will probably win this seat. They don't really have great candidates at this point. Tom Reed is the Corning mayor, the only Republican who had announced prior to Massa getting out. Other candidates are looking at it, but it looks like it's going to be a competitive primary, and there are at least a few elected officials from the Democratic side
who are looking at it, but a lot have taken their name out. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is the year to do that. Okay.
Probably not. That's a good point.
Topic number 3.
Yes.
We go back to ethics, which this is the point I was going to make about Wrangell.
Please.
And about everything else happening in New York, which is it really doesn't matter whether Republicans win the Wrangell seat. What the Wrangell story is doing is helping to fuel a national story,
Right.
which could imperil Democrats
Sure. Oh,
who
of course.
sit in less, Democratic seats, who sit in more competitive districts. And again, the issue is less about what exactly did Charlie Wrangell do than Nancy Pelosi saying she drained the swamp, Nancy Pelosi saying things in Washington were going to change.
Right.
And the Massa thing, I mean, the more he goes on Glenn Beck and the more he talks about being in the shower with Rahm Emanuel and
we'll get to that.
Devil's Spawn and all this, look, he definitely sets him up as being Mr. Crazy Town, right? I mean, he does not sound like a rational person right now, which can help Democrats in some ways. On the other hand, it just goes to the circus that Washington has become.
Right, and I agree with you. I think that it's very difficult for Democrats to get beyond the circus caricature that exists right now, especially with the Massa scandal. But I think you do have to go a little bit deeper and look at the responses that Democrats have had to the ethics scandals that have existed. No one thinks that Charlie Wrangell was running a corrupt, political operation out of his office in the same way that Tom DeLay resigned after basically acknowledging or being accused of having done the Abramoff scandal was much more systemic. You're seeing, I think, with Wrangell and with Massa, a real effort on the part of the Democratic leadership in the House to respond forcefully, quickly to scandals that they know contradict the message that helped them win in 2006 and 2008.
No, that's fair. The problem for them is that the process stories about actual legislation have become the new ethics scandals, right? The Cornhusker and the Gatorade and the whatever. Okay.
Gatorade. All right. Okay, yeah, topic number 4. The Massa story is great, and that's why we've devoted an entire show to this, because it really gives new meat, if you will, to all sorts of different publications. You've got your political people who are focusing your House people who are focusing on the race in New York. You've got your White House people who are focusing on the Rahm versus Massa thing. You've also got your gossip blogs who are obsessed, rightfully so, with the shower scene. Amy, the Rahm Emanuel, Eric Massa shower scene, described by Eric Massa on his radio show in detail.
There was nakedness. There was a finger jabbing, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
Chest
I
jabbing.
think it was. I assume it was a finger, but
I heard. Well, I won't go there. Anyway, that is getting as much attention. We will see, as you noted, how much detail we've missed in the Beck in his interview with Glenn Beck. So maybe there will be a little bit more that we don't even know. Of course, he went so far as to call Rahm Devil's Spawn.
Son of Devil's
Spawn.
Spawn.
Son of Devil's Spawn.
Right. And
which is hard. Son of Devil's Spawn.
It's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words.
Why mean words.
It is. All right.
All right, last words today. Is the worst over for Eric Massa, Amy Walter?
Well, guess you have to look at this politically and personally. The person that we haven't heard from thus far is anyone in his immediate family, right? His wife and his kids. So I expect at some point they may have to weigh in on this. Perhaps they won't, but I assume it's going to look like that. And for Eric Massa, I think as soon as Glenn Beck is done and as soon as the healthcare vote is done, he too will become back into the sort of fade into the background
So
and
that's a
no
yes.
longer be.
So that's so that's a no.
That's a no. I think politically, the worst is over in terms of what
That's
the mileage we'll get. Personally, there could be many more.
I think the worst
stories.
is over for Eric Massa.
All right. All right. Well, whatever happens next, don't you think he may coming back? In fact, he may open a consignment shop somewhere in West Palm Beach.
Interesting.
You know, I've
interesting
heard
thing.
about that. That works out really well for a lot of ex-members. All right.
All right.
We're out of time.
Yes, we are out of time. So
Yeah.
until next week, we'll see you on Hotline TV.